I was taken to my room, named the Devil's Den.
Julie Chrisley recently spoke out via her daughter's podcast. She released her diary entries from her early days in prison. But what does she say in them? How were the first couple of weeks for her? And why did she decide to share these with the public? Todd and Julie's daughter, Savannah, recently started a new series on her Unlocked podcast called Prison Diaries, Letters from Julie Chrisley. In these episodes, she reads letters that Julie sent her that are basically her diary entries from her time in prison. Julie has been in prison for over a year now. She and Todd started serving their time in January 2023. So a lot of the things Julie talks about in these letters happened a while ago, but they are still really interesting to listen to, and they're also pretty heartbreaking. Savannah said that Julie gave her permission to read these letters, but that didn't necessarily make it easier for her to actually read them. She was choking up throughout the entire podcast. It was clearly painful for her to read about her mom's experience in prison, and there's a good reason for that. The diary entries start on January 17th, 2023, and right from the start, it's clear that Julie was going through a lot emotionally. She talked about saying goodbye to Todd. She said that she knew her life would change forever after that day. Julie and Todd had never really been separated for this long before. Julie said that it was a sobering thought that the man she had lived with, raised a family with, and loved so much would be separated from her in another prison cell in a different state. Julie said that when it was time for them to say their goodbyes, they stood in front of their prayer bench. They hugged, kissed, and prayed together. But then they had to go their separate ways because Todd had to leave. This was apparently the last time they spoke to each other face to face before they went to prison. However, they did still talk on the phone again before they were separated for good. Todd is currently serving time in FPC Pensacola, Florida, while Julie is in FMC Lexington, Kentucky. When it was her time to go to prison, she was escorted by her parents, her son Chase, and her friend Chad. She described how she felt at the time, and she said that she just couldn't wrap her head around it all. She knew that she was going to be separated from her husband and children for years, but it was hard for her to actually process that. She said that her sentence seemed like a lifetime, and things didn't get much easier for her once she actually arrived at Lexington. She made a pretty crazy comparison when talking about the prison. She said that it was like an insane asylum. And then she also said something really concerning. She said that her cell was located in the hottest part of the entire prison building. She called that part of the prison the Devil's Den, which honestly sounds really terrible. I mean, Julie is 51 years old. She's not super old, but I feel like she definitely shouldn't be in the hottest part of the prison. That sounds really bad and potentially dangerous. But then again, we've already heard about the supposed conditions of Julie's prison before she decided to share her diary entries with us. Savannah even alleged in one of her podcast episodes that there were snakes there, which sounds really awful. But luckily, not everything about Julie's first couple of days in prison was horrible. In her diary entries, she said that she met some really kind people. She was supposedly welcomed by the other prisoners, and she even got some gifts from the commissary. The woman who leads the prison's church also apparently welcomed Julie. So it sounds like the people were nice to her at least, which probably made the entire experience a little easier. But overall, it still wasn't easy. In her letters, Julie said that she eventually broke down. She was missing Todd a lot. She'd never gone this long without talking to him, and it just became too much for her. But things eventually got even worse, because in one of her letters, Julie mentioned something really upsetting. She said that she saw some of her fellow prisoners asking for help and resources, but unfortunately, they didn't actually get anything. That must have been really concerning for Julie. But it later also became her own reality. What Savannah shared in the second part of Julie's prison diaries was shocking. In one of Julie's later letters, she talked about something that happened at the medical unit in Lexington. Apparently, she was told to get a flu shot, and while she was there, she also wanted to get her blood pressure checked. Savannah said that her mom suffers from really high blood pressure, so it makes sense why she would want that checked. But apparently, she was told that this wasn't possible. The people at the medical unit refused to check her blood pressure, and this really got to Julie. She wrote that she would be worth more to her family if she was gone rather than alive. This was a really hard thing for Savannah to read. She said that reading these words was one of the most heartbreaking things ever. She was upset that the medical professionals wouldn't even check her mom's blood pressure. But more than that, she was devastated by what her mom said about herself. She said that Julie has made a huge impact on many people's lives, and that was worth more than anything else. It's awful that Julie felt this way in prison, but sadly, things soon got even worse. One day, Julie was told to go to the doctor's office. She thought that she was going to see a gynecologist, but her visit turned out to be a lot more serious than that. Julie was told by her doctor that she had high levels of a certain pregnancy hormone, and this was a cause for concern because she obviously wasn't pregnant. So she was told that there was a possibility that it could be a tumor. Julie was previously diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012, so this must have been really awful news for her to receive. There was a possibility that her cancer could be coming back, but this time she wasn't surrounded by her family and loved ones. She was in prison, isolated from everyone she cares about. In her diary entries, Julie admitted that she was really scared. She said that she just wanted to be with Todd, and she confessed that she wasn't sure if she could do this without him. Savannah found it difficult to read these letters. She hated that her mom had to deal with this all by herself, which is completely understandable. I think anyone would be terrified if they got news like that, and dealing with it alone must have been awful for Julie. Savannah must have felt so powerless reading those letters, but there was nothing she could do. What's also heartbreaking is that Savannah said that she doesn't even think these letters are as open and raw as they could be. She believes that Julie probably left a lot of things out. She shared what she could, but the truth is that she probably didn't want her kids to worry about her too much. So it's possible that things were actually much worse for her than what she described in the letters, which is a devastating thought. I mean, the things she talked about already sounded really difficult and upsetting. I can't even imagine what kind of things she might have left out to spare her kids' feelings. But I'm sure that Savannah's right. Julie probably didn't go into as much detail as she could have because she's still Savannah's mom, and she probably still wants to protect her and her feelings more than anything. But anyway, what do you guys think about all this? What are your thoughts on Julie's letters? What do you think about Savannah sharing these with everyone on her podcast? And what are your thoughts on the alleged conditions in Lexington? Let me know in the comments below.